The first question comes from a sister Gui Hua. This is quite a long question, so she has to explain the background first, and this is how it goes. There are two sets of near-death cognitive process in page 199 and page 206. One is near-death mind-door cognitive process of the past death consciousness without gap. It goes to the rebirth consciousness, Bhavanga 1 to 16, followed by present life, first cognitive process. And the other one is near-death five-door cognitive process of past life, death consciousness, without gap again, to rebirth consciousness, followed by the 16 Bhavanga, by the present life to the first cognitive process. For normal cognitive process, usually five-door cognitive process followed by series of mind-door cognitive process. So the question is this: for near death, is the negative process sometimes happen in near death five-door death cognitive process, and sometimes in near death mind-door cognitive process, and it is due to the three signs of karma? Please enlighten us.
Last week, I do not have enough time to explain clearly because I'm rushing to finish the chapter 5 process freed. Therefore, it leaves behind so many unclear, unexplained points that I need to explain. Okay, so for the dying moment, for a person who is going to die, one of the three signs will appear in front. One of the three signs will appear in his vision. So these three signs we have already studied. One is karma. Karma is karma. Another one is sign of karma, and the third is sign of destination. Okay, so for sign of karma and sign of destination, sign of karma is like the instrument you used when performing the dana. For example, you used to offer food to the sangha, then in your dying moment you see the food. This is called sign of karma. But if you used to offer food to the sangha, and during dying moment you see the heavenly beings, this is called sign of destination. Okay, or you see the heavenly mansion, big house, a bungalow, big house in heaven. This is called sign of destination. So sign of karma and sign of destination can appear in five door as well as my door. I give you an example. So suppose another example, you used to offer flower to the Buddha image, to the Buddha statue or Buddha Rupa. Then during dying moment, you see the flower, but in fact, it's not the whole flower you see. It's the color of flower. So you see the, let's say, pink color, the pink color of the flower, not the whole flower. In order to see the whole flower, maybe you have to go to my door, right? So if you see only the color of flower, then this will trigger the eye-door cognitive process. Because of sense door. Sense door means eye door, ear door, nose door, tongue door, and body door. Cognitive process we call sense door. Right? Another one is mind door. So we have 6 doors. So suppose this dying person only sees the color of flower. Then the eye door, near death eye door cognitive process will arise. Suppose he sees he sees the whole flower, let's say, mentally, not the physical eyes, mentally. Then the mind, door, cognitive process will arise during near death. Therefore, the sign of karma can trigger, can cause sense door or mind door to arise during dying moment. Okay. Then for sign of destination, suppose a person who is butcher in his past life, or fisherman, or hunter, or so during his dying moment, he saw red color of fire, which is sign of destination, indicates he will be reborn in the hell in the next life. Okay, since he only sees the color of fire, so this will cause near death eye door cognitive process to arise. So here 5, you see this 5 door averting consciousness, eye consciousness seeing the red color of fire, then receiving consciousness, investigating consciousness, determining consciousness, and the last cognitive process only have 5 jhavanas, because the heart is very weak, so the heart cannot pump so strongly, so only 5 jhavana will arise instead of 7 jhavana. Okay, then after 7 jhavana, before death consciousness, there can be registration, 2 registration, or then after 2 registration, finished eye, door, cognitive process, finished. And last one is death consciousness. Okay. And suppose, and this one, yogis, a dying person sees the whole fire, whole fire burning, and this appear in his mental. Mentally he see, not through his physical eyes. Then this sign of destination of fire will appear in his near death mind door cognitive process. Okay. So when a sense door can arise, when the mind door arise, depend on whether he sees with his physical eye or hear with his physical ear. For example, some dying person hear the screaming of the hell beings. They are painful screaming from the hell beings. So he hear through his ear door, then this will cause near death ear door cognitive process. Okay, and some people smell the fragrance flower from the heaven. This also will cause near death nose door cognitive process. However, if he see the whole screen through the mental, not the physical door, not the physical eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, but through mental, he closes his eye. So he sees through his mental, then whether it's sign of karma or sign of destination will appear in the mind door only. Okay? So then another one is karma. Karma is not here is as object, not the action. Karma means action, right? But during dying moment, and when the karma as object appear, then this only happen at my door because it is mental object. Karma is purely mental object. For example, this one. Suppose this yogi donor often come to center, to AVMC, to do dana every Saturday, so during dying moment, this karma of offering food matured and caused the karma as object. So during dying moment, she saw herself as though she is performing the dana or offering the food to the Sangha again. So he saw herself as though she was offering the food to the Sangha as mental object, because it's already done in the past. So it appeared as a mental object, just like movie. She saw a movie like that in the past, flash by. So this only can be discerned through the mind-door cognitive process. Therefore, the karma, one of the signs we call karma as object, will appear only in the mind-door cognitive process, because this is not seen through the eye, ear, nose, tongue, only see through mental object. Okay?
So let me read the second question from Vincent Chow. He says in page 208, it is mentioned that, so in one's lifetime, rebirth consciousness, bhavanga consciousness, and death consciousness all take the same object. Their consciousness is already determined at rebirth, and that rebirth, bhavanga, and death consciousness are actually the same consciousness. I was just wondering, since we can perform wholesome karma to cultivate our mind, would our current life death consciousness take a different object than the current life rebirth consciousness, so that we can have more wholesome next life rebirth consciousness?
I hope you understand the question well.
Yeah.
If you do not understand the question well, then you get lost. Okay, so I will share again the screen. Okay, so again, suppose, let's say, take this example. I think he asked the question because I do not explain clearly in my last lecture. This is my mistake. I too rushed to finish the course. So now I'm going to slow down. Okay, just now I mentioned in near that idle cognitive process sees only color of flowers. And so this dying person, so his near that idle cognitive process sees the color of flower, then after 5 jhana. And this near that cognitive process has no potential, it has no karma potential, because it only play the channel for the productive karma, which done either in this life or previous life, to produce its effect. So this near that idle cognitive process, unlike jhana, unlike usual jhana, they don't have the lack of productive karma, but indeed it serves as a channel for the productive karma to ripen. So after 5 jhana, whether there's registration or can be after 5 jhana, can be registering citta, or after registering citta can be many bhavanga. I exclude all this because the screen is so small, I cannot put everything inside. But in your mind, you must know, some people die after bhavanga. Near that idle cognitive process, after jhana, they can be registering or they can be bhavanga. Okay, so let's say there's a registering. Now, through registering in after 5 jhana. After 2 registering consciousness, this idle cognitive process stop already. Stop. Finished. Then then that consciousness. So that consciousness is process free. It is not inside the cognitive process. It's out of cognitive process. Therefore, I keep different color. I use white color. Here. So here, cognitive process, red color. Now the cognitive process stop, finished. Then that consciousness. So the question he asked, I think he assumed that consciousness determine rebirth consciousness. This assumption is not correct. I think it's not his mistake, my mistake. I do not make it clear in my last section. Only when people ask, then I know, oh yeah, I missed this point. I missed to explain. So what determine the rebirth is this javana, 5 javana, or we call idle, near death, idle cognitive process. This, we call last cognitive process, not the last consciousness. Death consciousness is called last consciousness. But however, that consciousness itself is resultant. So how can resultant produce rebirth consciousness? Not possible, right? Because of this confusion, people think, oh, last moment. So people think that consciousness determine rebirth consciousness, which is not correct. That consciousness itself is resultant and is process-free consciousness. So what determine rebirth consciousness is this last, we call near death, idle cognitive process. It's the cognitive process that determine, and cognitive process stop, end at the javana here. Death consciousness is process-free. Process-free only got 3 consciousness. One is called rebirth consciousness, one is called bhavanga, another one is called death consciousness. And they are all resultant consciousness. They cannot determine rebirth. Only near death cognitive process can determine rebirth. Okay, then I explain to you again. And after rebirth consciousness, and rebirth consciousness also take the object of near of the previous life, near that idle cognitive process. Rebirth, new rebirth. Then bhavanga flow. After that, 16 bhavanga, this fixed law. The text didn't explain why 16. It's fixed law. Then after that, first cognitive process, craving for new existence. Whatever existence is, whether it is in the 4 willful states, in the heavenly beings, in human beings, this being will crave for his new existence. Although the existence may be full of suffering, but craving itself is just want to live, continue to live. This is called craving. Okay. Then after that, bhavanga again. Then here in between, many when he was born, when he come out in the mother's womb, come out from the mother's womb, he start to have all this ear, eyes. Then many cognitive process will arise. Then after that, sorry. Then after that, death consciousness. Okay. So in one's life here, rebirth consciousness take the color of flower as object. Bhavanga also take the color of flower as object. Then the death consciousness, which is resultant consciousness, also take the color of flower as object. Rebirth, bhavanga, and death consciousness, these are the same consciousness. But when this consciousness arrives at the rebirth moment, it is named rebirth consciousness. If it arises after rebirth, in between life, before death, it is called bhavanga citta. And if it arises during dying, the last moment of dying, it's called death consciousness. Different name, but same citta. Therefore, they have to take same color of flower as object. Okay. Then after this person in the present life, the rebirth and what caused rebirth consciousness in the next life? Here, rebirth is rebirth consciousness in the next life. It is not determined by the death consciousness, but it's determined by the here. Here means near death cognitive process. Near death cognitive process. Let's say this person, always keep morality, keep sila throughout his life. So this karma ripened. Then he saw himself like he saw the heavenly beings. So my dog cognitive process, near that my dog cognitive process arise because of productive karma of keeping the sila, will produce his rebirth consciousness. So it's not determined by that consciousness, but determined by near that cognitive process in one's life. Okay, I will explain again until you understand, because it's quite confusing for you. Let me take this one. So, okay, past life. Let's repeat it a bit. Past bhavanga, vibrating bhavanga, arresting bhavanga, then 5 door averting consciousness, I door consciousness, receiving consciousness, investigating consciousness, determining consciousness, and 5 jhana. Okay, suppose this person now, he, like you, let's say, all of you listen to Dhamma talk. Listen to Dhamma talk. So during dying moment, because you have attended so many Abhidhamma classes and you listen with joy, and associated with knowledge. So during past life also you listen to Abhidhamma. That's why this life you are interested, right? Past life you also listen to Abhidhamma talk or listen to any Dhamma talk. So during dying moment, this listening to Dhamma talk become productive karma, which will produce next rebirth. So during dying moment, then this person sees red color. If he sees red color in the mother's womb, so this indicates he will be reborn as human. Now, many of my friends who can see his past life, when many people saw the red color in mother's womb, that red color only, so indicate that he will be reborn as human beings. So since he sees the red color, so it's only I-door cognitive process. It can be my door, but let's say we take I-door cognitive process and sees the red color. So this karma of listening to talk will produce his rebirth. So will produce rebirth consciousness. So the near that I-door cognitive process stop at the jhana here. Then the cognitive process finished. Then the death consciousness, which is the last consciousness, which is process freed out of cognitive process, which is resultant consciousness. So this cannot determine rebirth. It's only the last cognitive process that determine rebirth. Okay, and this rebirth also take red color because it's the same result from the listening to the the Dhamma. Then after that, 16 bhavanga. Also take the red color because they are the same result from the productive karma of listening to Dhamma talk. Then after that, the first mind door, averting consciousness, and 7 jhana, craving for new existence. Now they say he reborn as human being in present life. Reborn as human being, he start to crave for the new existence as human being. So craving, the origin of suffering, start at the very beginning already. And after that, my bhavanga, many bhavanga, and in between there are many cognitive process. When he grew, when he got eye, sense, eye, when he got eye, ear, nose, and tongue, there are many cognitive process will arise within his life. Then now, suppose this person is going to die again. In this present life, he is going to die. So in his last moment also, we call near death cognitive process, which has only 5 jhana here. J5 jhana. Then they say this time got 2 registering consciousness, and this cognitive near death cognitive process come to the end. Then the last citta is called death consciousness. Death consciousness cannot determine rebirth. Here, the last or near death cognitive process, the jhana here, determine the rebirth. Okay, I think now you get better understanding. Okay, so suppose this person in the present life, this person done a dana associated with the knowledge. So accompanied with joy associated with knowledge, which is 34 mental formation. And when this karma ripen, then it will produce its result, rebirth consciousness, also accompanied with joy associated with knowledge. 34 mental formation. Okay. Suppose this person in the present life, this person, do a dana, and he doesn't understand the law of karma. Suppose he used to offer money or give some money to the beggars out of compassion. It's good deed, right? But he does not believe in the law of karma. He thinks that after that, and it all perished, nothing remained. Therefore, he did not believe in the law of karma, that good karma will produce next rebirth in the good plane of existence. So his dana means accompanied with joy, dissociated from knowledge. So during dying moment, this karma ripened and produced the last near death mind or cognitive process. He sees he himself like offering the money to the beggar again. So this is called karma as object. And since he did that, is dissociated from knowledge. Therefore, he produced his result as rebirth consciousness, also dissociated with knowledge. 34 minus 1 become 33. So his rebirth consciousness and his bhavanga and that consciousness in his previous life also will be 33 dissociated from knowledge. Okay. I have to be very patient to explain this. We have studied, wholesome citta. We already studied 8 wholesome citta. Let's say we take 1 citta as example. One citta accompanied by joy associated with knowledge unprompted. So this one got 3 roots. Here knowledge, I want to explain a bit the meaning of knowledge. Knowledge not necessarily understand anicca, dukkha, anatta, jnana sampayutta, asankarika or sasankarika, jnana sampayutta, associated with knowledge. Knowledge means that you know what is proper, what is improper, also called knowledge. These are called more lower type of knowledge. You know what is good, what is bad. You know who is fool, who is wise. This is also called knowledge, right? And you know what is skillful, what is unskillful. And you know the law of karma is also called knowledge. So you know anicca, dukkha, anatta is also higher knowledge, right? So knowledge covers very wide range. So suppose this person only understands the law of karma. So he performed dana, offering something to somebody, do with accompanied by joy associated with knowledge of understand the law of karma. So this karma, when during his dying moment, this karma ripen, and it will produce resultant citta as rebirth consciousness. Then that citta is called one resultant citta accompanied by joy associated with knowledge unprompted. Exactly same as the wholesome citta, but now it's a resultant citta. Okay, same as if he did dana or anything good, any good deed dissociated from knowledge, and when this karma ripen during his dying moment, and this karma which will appear in the near-death cognitive process will produce his rebirth as one resultant consciousness accompanied by joy dissociated from knowledge prompted. So 2 roots here, dissociated from knowledge. So will produce his result as 2 roots as rebirth consciousness. Okay, I know you come to better understanding. Bugs, is it clear?
Yeah, I think it's a lot more clear.
Okay.
There are, in fact, in the class, people asking how can the one citta of death, become the rebirth. So I think the answer is very clear. It's a last cognitive process.
Yes, not the death citta determined. Yes.
Yeah, many people ask during the the student discussion.
I think it's my fault. I do not explain clearly in my previous class. I thought after Bhavanga, because we already study the cognitive process, right? And I already explained to you that consciousness is process free. So that consciousness is not inside the cognitive process and it's process free and it's the resultant citta. So how can it produce next rebirth? Sometimes I assume you understand, but it's too many information inside, so the mind just sometimes cannot, interrelate.
It's okay, Sayalay, we are learning. Don't worry, we are learning.
Okay.
Okay, we go to the next question. You answer first. We have got a third question come from Ik Fawong. She asks, my dog cognitive process has 12 consciousness moment, connecting a mental object. Can this be related to thoughts that arise during meditation? If yes, how to relate? How to use this to let go? I'm still having a lot of thoughts during meditation.
Initially, I don't want to answer this question because this type of question is very personal. To me, it's called personal question. But I thought my answer may help many of you, so I decided to answer this question. When the mind is restless, we have 16 mental factors. 16 mental formation, 15 mental factors plus 1 consciousness associated with restlessness. Okay, and this happen in the mind or cognitive process, right? So how can you relate? How can you put the knowledge into the practical meditation practice? Okay, suppose now you are sitting in a meditation posture and mind is so restless. Then instead of, instead of carried away by the thoughts, you can analyze each mind moment, each mental factors in this mind door cognitive process. We already know we have 7 universal, right? Number 1 is called contact. So when the mind is restless, so you try to listen the contact, the contact the mind with the restless mental object. Restless is the thoughts, right? Thought is mental object. So you see the mental object impinge to the mind. So then you say contact, contact. So you try to listen contact, contact, contact. Then after you listen feeling, restless. According to Abhidhamma, restlessness is associated with equanimity feeling, neutral feeling. Not angry and not greed. So then you listen, try to see during when you are restless, the feeling, try to see that feeling. But it can be, when you get angry with your restlessness, it can become displeasure. Can become angry feeling or unpleasant feeling. So you try to listen the feeling, then you try to listen the perception which perceive this restless mind, is wandering mind. Then you try to listen the volition which create unwholesome karma of restless. Then you try to see the attention, the mind keep turning to the restless mind, or conducting all the mental factors and citta towards the restless mental object. So if you can analyze one by one, the 7 universal plus the 6 occasional, exclude maybe no rupture, maybe exclude 1, then analyze one by one. While analyzing one by one, your restless will come to stop. Instead, many wholesome consciousness associated with knowledge will arise, because you started to understand mental factor one by one as they occur. This is called very highly wholesome citta. So you can turn, when you have lots of thought during meditation, you try to first learn by heart all the 7 universal, 6 occasional, and some 4 universal mental factor, unwholesome mental factor, and analyze one by one. Then while you are analyzing one by one, all this, the unwholesome mind will turn to the wholesome mind, become jnana sampayutta, associated from knowledge. In order to answer your question, I put into practice for 2 sittings, and the mind becomes so good and full of wholesomeness. So this one way you can put Abhidhamma into practice, by listening the mental factor one by one as they occur. Last time I showed you during anapanasati, right? Because I don't want you to have unwholesome mind, so I take the wholesome object, anapanasati. But now, since you have restless mind, you can use restless mind to analyze the associated mental factors one by one as they occur. And this will turn from your restless to the wholesome mind. Okay? Next question.
Thank you, Sayalay. I go to the next question, which came from Sister Isita, Australia. She has 2 questions. Number 1, how can Maha Kriya done only by Arahant have 2 roots? How can Arahant do Kriya disassociated with Panya or Moha?
I think this question is very good question. When I teach the chapter 1, I assume somebody will ask, but no one asked, and only asked after chapter 5. And this question I also posed to my teacher many times. How can Arahant has 2 roots? Because Arahant already eradicate all defilements.
Yeah.
Okay. So the teacher give me one answer. He said that some Arahant, when they perform something out of the habitual tendency, and then he gave me an example. He said, Venerable Sariputta, if I'm not mistaken, is Venerable Sariputta. One day he come across a river, very narrow river. instead of walking across the river, he jumped to another bank. You can imagine Arahant is with such a serene faculty and jump like a monkey to next bank. So the teacher said that. So the action of jumping across a river is done dissociated from knowledge. It's no knowledge for Arahant, because it's not proper. At that time, he was carried away by his past tendency, habitual tendency, which he had accumulated throughout the samsara. So at that moment, influenced by the past tendency, therefore he jumped. And that action is called true root dissociated with knowledge. This is the answer he gave to me. Okay. And so, another example which I think of another example, which that was Pilinda Vacha. Pilinda Vacha was an Arahant. And in his past life, I think 500 lives successively, he was born in Brahma caste, Brahma caste. Brahma caste is high caste according to the caste system of India. So, due to his habitual tendency accumulated through his past life. So he used to call, in this present life, although he has attained Arahant, he used to call other people as Vasala, low caste. You call other people as low caste, you offended other people, right? People will get very angry because of you. So why he called people Vasala, like looking down at other people. In fact, he's Arahant. He has no any conceit at all. So he called people Vasala or called low caste simply because of habitual tendency which he accumulated throughout many lifetimes. They become his habitual tendency. Does not associated with refinement of conceit. Just two example is Mahakiriya have two roots dissociated with Panya knowledge. Okay?
So, Sayalay, Mahakiriya is the functional chitta, right?
Yeah, functional chitta, yes.
Okay. All right. Second question, Mahavipaka can come about only in next life. How can one have Mahavipaka with three roots, one being Amoha? How can one have Amoha as Vipaka in next life spontaneously without prior knowledge, Panya of Anicca, Dukkha, and Anatta?
Okay. So just now I already explained what is the knowledge means, right? Panya or jnana. Jnana means many things. Can be what's proper, what's improper, what's good, what's bad, understanding the law of karma, having right view, having known anicca, dukkha, anatta. All this are panya, are the territory of panya. Okay, this point you make it clear first. Okay. Then, how can one have Mahavipaka with three roots? Mahavipaka means resultant consciousness. Resultant consciousness in next life. We call Maha. You should not use Maha. In the Pali, we don't use Mahavipaka. We only use Vipaka. So sometimes your question may make me very confused because it's not mentioned Maha in Pali, then I cannot understand why you use Maha. So here Vipaka means resultant. How can one have resultant chitta during rebirth with three roots? Then here, in fact, just now I have already explained. I want to I will share screen.
Okay, let me unshare first.
Okay, suppose this one. In the past life, let's say in the past life, I have done a dana I have done a dana, but dissociated from knowledge. Dissociated from knowledge. Let's say, I say just now, offer the money to the beggar, just out of compassion, but without understanding the law of karma. So during dying moment, this karma ripen and produce. It's going to produce rebirth in a human realm. So this person sees the red color. This person sees the red color. When this person sees the red color, then the near-death eye door cognitive process run up to 5 after 5 jhana. This cognitive process stopped. Then death consciousness, which is process-free, which is resultant consciousness, process-free. Then without gap, the karma offering to the beggar dissociated from knowledge is 2 roots, right? And so this karma ripen and produce his rebirth consciousness with 2 roots only. So his rebirth consciousness is 34 minor knowledge, so 33. So his bhavanga also 33, mental factors also 2 roots. Then up to his death, these all 3 are same citta, also 33. Okay. Then in this present life, let's say his rebirth consciousness only 2 roots. So then after that, here in between here is many. He start to grow up. He start to listen to the Dhamma talk. So happen he's fortunate enough to know the teaching of the Buddha. Then he start to understand Dhamma. He start to understand the law of karma. He start to understand anicca dukkha anatta. Suppose, so he spent a lot of time listening to Dhamma talk in this present life. Although his rebirth consciousness is 2 root, but this time he start to understand the Dhamma. He understands anicca dukkha anatta only through listening, not through practical meditation experience. So through listening, that he listened about law of karma, good and bad, and so on. So when listening to Dhamma talk, he already understands the law of karma. Then the karma of listening to Dhamma talk now is done with knowledge, accompanied with joy associated with knowledge. And this he did it many times in this present life. Okay, now he's going to die here. Last cognitive process, 5 jhana here, and 2 registering consciousness. So during his dying moment, he's listening to talk, which is accompanied with knowledge, now ripen. During his dying moment, so he will see, let's say he will see the Deva realm, the heavenly beings, in his near-death cognitive mind door cognitive process. And this karma of listening to Dhamma talk associated with knowledge will produce his rebirth, consciousness in the heavenly realm, associated with knowledge. Okay, so although his rebirth consciousness in the present life, although his rebirth consciousness is dissociated from knowledge, but in the present life, he can do a lot of karma by understanding the law of karma, by listening to talk. He start to accumulate, he start to know, he start to, cultivate the knowledge. So whatever he do it with joy and associated with knowledge. So during his dying moment, one of his karma, accompanied with joy, associated with knowledge, matured, will produce his 3-root rebirth consciousness in the next life. So doesn't mean that this life he was born as two roots, then he has no chance. Yes, he has no chance to attain jhana only, has no chance to attain nibbana, that's true only. But he still has chance to accumulate a lot of good deeds associated with knowledge. That's most lay people want, right? I think most lay people want, to have to live in a happy life, to reborn in a heavenly realm. They still don't want nibbana yet. So in this life, so although he's two root, he still can dana, sila, and now listening to talk, offering services, and do it with knowledge. And this will produce his next life, rebirth consciousness with three root. Then next life, he can practice jhana and attain jhana. Next life, he can practice vipassana and realize anicca dukkha anatta. Okay? Therefore, come to the question, how to have the vipaka, how to have the resultant with three root spontaneously. Spontaneously is not a good word, Whether the rebirth consciousness in the future life with three roots or not depend on what karma ripened in your previous life. Okay, so now rebirth in the future life. Rebirth, if you want to get a rebirth consciousness associated with three root, it must depend on the present life, what productive karma ripened. If that productive karma is associated with three root ripened during dying moment, it will automatically, or you say spontaneously, produce rebirth consciousness with three roots. But if the karma ripened during my present life, during dying moment, one karma with two roots ripen, then it will automatically produce resultant consciousness, which is rebirth consciousness with two roots. Therefore, we come to conclusion, it's very important whatever we do in this present life, whatever good deeds we do in this present life, whether it's sila, bhavana, offering services, or all good deeds you do it with happiness, associated with knowledge. Don't complain. Don't complain, Sayalay Susīlā, give me so many tasks to do. I'm so busy, I'm busy with earning money. I'm very busy taking care of my children. Why he asked me, assign me to do this, to do that. Okay, I can stop assigning you to do all this meritorious deeds. But you lose a lot of chances to accumulate good deeds, which can produce your next rebirth with three roots. Okay? Here. Suppose for a yogis who is meditating. Okay. Suppose a meditator who is in his near-death moment, he is meditating. He's trying to see his pain as impermanent, or he's trying to see his, because during dying moment, there's lots of unpleasant feeling, a lot of pain, a lot of fear, worry, attachment to the family, attachment to the son and daughter, attachment to the property, right? So a lot of worry, fear, but he's a meditator. He knows how to contemplate impermanent. So during his dying moment, so he tried to contemplate impermanent of his pain, or impermanent of his worry, or impermanent of his attachment. All these are called formation. So he tried to contemplate impermanent. Then his near-death cognitive process. Contemplate impermanence of formation is mind-door cognitive process. So his mind-door cognitive process taking that impermanent of formation as object. Then mind-door overthink, then 5 jhavana, during that moment 5 jhavana. Then the near-death mind-door cognitive process come to stop. Then that consciousness arises, then this person pass away. And his near-death mind-door cognitive process will produce, which taking impermanent, which contemplate impermanent of formation, will produce his rebirth consciousness, whether in human life or in Deva, only these two places. Cannot reborn in Brahma, because if you want to reborn in the Brahma, fine material and immaterial sphere of existence, you need jhana. But here, contemplation of impermanent is called sensual. Is how to call it? It's not jhana. So rebirth consciousness only will arise in the human realm or Deva realm. And this rebirth consciousness is associated with knowledge, very powerful knowledge, associated with powerful insight knowledge, 34. And this knowledge is not the understanding the law of karma or understanding what is good or what is bad. This knowledge is associated with impermanent, understanding of impermanent of formation. And his Pavanga also same, taking the same object. And this person, because his rebirth consciousness is associated with powerful insight knowledge, and in this life, he will surely when he come to meditation, he will progress very, very fast. When people say, okay, contemplate impermanent, then he immediately know how to contemplate his 5 aggregates as impermanent, and he can attain nibbana very fast in this present life. And even if continue, even can attain arahant, no? And after they say this person, he because his rebirth consciousness is endowed with such a powerful insight, and in this lifetime, then he continue to practice and he become monk, and continue every day he meditate, and during his dying moment, he become arahant. He become arahant. Do you think any sign will arise among the 3 signs? What sign will arise? Anybody can answer me? I need some answer.
Please type on the chat box. No sign. One say no sign. From Luhan, yeah, no sign, no sign.
Very good, very good, very good.
There's one from Temi. He says nibbana.
Nibbana is not sign. Okay. Okay. So no sign will arise. So before dying moment, he achieved arahantship. Of course, taking nibbana. But nibbana is not sign. We didn't call nibbana as sign, right? Okay. So he take nibbana. Then after that, death consciousness arise, right? Death consciousness. Then he passed away from this life. Okay. So will the next rebirth consciousness arise or not? I need the answer.
Okay, please start on. Luhan say no, Anna say no, Ishita say no, Evelina say no. Oh, okay. No.
Okay, very good. So, because Arahant has uprooted all the defilements, especially ignorance and craving, which is responsible for rebirth. So, after Arahant, when he attained Arahant nearing dying moment, no sign will arise. He take nibbana as object. Then death consciousness occur. Then finish his life. Just like the wind blow, just like fire blown out by the wind. So no more citta will ever arise again. Okay, let's say this person, when he meditates, he meditates samatha. He practiced anapanasati, and during his dying moment, he take patibhaga nimitta. This is called like crystal. He take patibhaga nimitta as object. Then after, during his dying moment, mind door cognitive process, because patibhaga nimitta is apprehended by mind door. So we call this one kamma. Kamma is apprehended by mind door. Then after near-death mind-dog cognitive process, that citta arise, then this person pass away from this life. Let's say during this lifetime, he enter into first jhana, taking Patibhaga Nimitta as object, and he died with first jhana during his near-death mind-dog cognitive process. And so this first jhana, kusala, wholesome karma, will determine his rebirth. What plane of existence will the rebirth consciousness arise?
Daini says 5 material sphere.
Yeah, yes, correct. So in the first jhana, so since he died with first jhana, so his rebirth consciousness will arise in the first jhana plane of existence. And his bhavanga also will take this 34 mental formation, same as rebirth consciousness. Then after the life flow, although he's Brahma, when he was born, the first cognitive process also will crave for assistance, craving for assistance. Whether you are Brahma, Deva, human, or even animal, hell beings, the cravings still arise. Craving for assistance still arise. It's very, very deep-rooted type of craving for all sentient beings. Okay. Then after bhavanga, after near death. Near death depend on what karma. He can be, not necessarily he must be born in the jhana plane again. If during near death he did not enter into jhana, then he will be reborn in a sensual plane again. Okay.